Welcome everyone to Monday Morning Morons for March 2nd, 2020. This week, let's talk about not enough. Seems there's quite a few people out there who just aren't being progressive enough to appease the mob, starting with an entire generation. Student op-ed, Generation Z needs to acknowledge its heteronormativity. Generation Z, you filthy, disgusting, heteronormative pukes are just not progressive enough. Personally, I find the whole concept of heteronormativity hilariously stupid, because heterosexuality is the norm. I mean, something like 97% of the population on the planet is heterosexual. That's pretty much the very definition of normal. How dare you normal people act like, well, normal people? It seems the latest attack in the never-ending culture wars comes from a Northwestern University freshman who this week claimed that Generation Z needs to acknowledge its heteronormativity if it truly wants to be called progressive. Maybe they don't want to be called progressive. Maybe they just want to be called normal. Generation Z, which Wikipedia says is widely accepted as starting at the birth year of 1997, is only statistically more progressive than its predecessors. Tanisha, I don't know how to say that, writes in the Daily Northwestern. Just because we are collectively attempting to undermine social constructs of race, gender, patriarchy, organized religion, I still don't know how to say it, does not mean we are individually immune to the less explicit and more insidious forms of these very institutions. It's never enough with you zealots, is it? Everyone everywhere must be absolutely 100% attuned to the hive mind at all times, or it's not enough. For the author, one of the less explicit and more insidious forms of sticking with traditional constructs is heterosexual person stating that they don't want his or her partner to be bisexual. Such statements infuriate Tekriwal. You know what, I'm just going to call you Terry, so I don't keep fucking up your name. That discovering someone's sexual orientation would change the way you see them is not a personal preference. It's simply a prejudice I cannot respect or accept. That's because, evidently, you didn't fucking listen to what they just said. You made up what you think they just said so you can be pissed off. They didn't say they view that person differently. They merely said what they'd prefer in a partner. So, yeah, that is a preference. Look around a room and definitively identify a stranger's orientation or pronouns. You might have a lucky guess, but the truth is, you can't tell something like that. And by trying to, you're playing into heteronormative ideology because you're boxing people into what you think are identifiable categories of who's queer and who isn't. Yes, there are stereotypes of what gay or lesbian people act like or are supposed to act like, but they're stereotypes for a reason. Androgyny means nothing that its bearer doesn't want it to. There is no such thing as gay behavior or straight behavior, only stereotypes. Yeah, there's a funny thing about stereotypes. They don't just pop up out of thin air. Most are based on observation, so they end up being at least partially true. Where they become wrong is when they cross into generalization. And yes, there is such a thing as gay behavior and straight behavior. It happens in the bedroom, metaphorically. I mean, they could just as easily do that shit in the kitchen if they wanted to, but you get my point. Your sexuality is defined by what you're attracted to and the kind of people that you have sex with. I mean, that's just how definitions work. If you're a guy who has sex with guys, you're gay. That's quite literally what the word means. The problem that I think you're trying to address anyway is when people add things onto the term that don't necessarily belong there. Something like a guy who talks softly, likes flowers, and takes scented baths. Those things don't necessarily mean he's gay. But if he's having sex with other guys, yeah, he's absolutely gay. That's not a stereotype. He's literally the definition of the fucking word. So, yes, there absolutely is gay behavior and straight behavior. One of the biggest demands the LGBTQ community and their allies are making is asking people to realize that personality is in large part unaffected by gender identity or sexual orientation. They are not a break from the heteronormative default, but very much part of everyday and are normal. If you liked someone when they were or you thought they were heterosexual and suddenly don't when you learn they're bi, pansexual, or non-binary, you're doing exactly what Generation Z is always accusing boomers of, not supporting people and their choices. No, what I'm doing is making my choice. If I learn you identify as pansexual or non-binary, then I've just discovered you're a nutcase and I no longer want anything to do with you. If I discover you're a gay man, that's fine, great, good for you and all, but I'm not. So while we can be friends and go bowling or some shit, that's pretty much the end of it. If you're okay with that, great. If not, well, sorry, but that's as far as this relationship is ever going to go. And the same goes with if you're a lesbian. I mean, that's cool, happy for you, but clearly, I'm not a girl. So, probably not going to be the sort of relationship you're looking for there. We can still hang out and have a beer or something, but clearly the bedroom is going to be off limits for us. That doesn't make any of us wrong or bad people. We're just making our personal choices. There's clearly a difference between liking someone in hopes of pursuing a romantic relationship and liking someone as a friend to hang out with. In the latter, it certainly is arguable that you're not a very nice person if you end a friendship just because you learn that friend is gay. However, if you're a heterosexual, there's nothing at all improper with terminating a possible romantic relationship upon learning the same. Exactly. We agree. So, what the hell was your problem again? That being said, if you still actually think Tekriwal has a point, she kind of ruins it by delving into the studies/sociology pit of depression in her closing paragraph. The truth is, we are all guilty of living comfortably in an age of state-sponsored monogamy and state-sanctioned erasure of identity on an unimaginable scale, both of which are closely tied to the institution of colonialism, she says. Many don't know or ignore how entrenched the gender binary is in enduring imperial trajectory and the white male dominance it has birthed. Oh, right. You're fucking nuts. Reality has no bearing on your life. Got it. Moving on. University of Washington law students complain schools' diversity initiatives are not enough. It never is with you people. Schools are roughly 60-40 female to male these days, and they're still bitching they need more women for equality. Students at the University of Washington School of Law are not satisfied with diversity initiatives established by the university, and they continue to clash with the dean about it. According to the Daily, protesters, garbed in black clothing with tape over their mouths featuring the word silenced on it, demonstrated in a law seminar to demand what by now is the usual: a more diverse student body, faculty, and core curriculum. Is this silence thing on the tape supposed to be ironic? Because clearly you dipshits have not been silenced. You're the loudest bunch of ignorant screeching harpies I've ever seen anyway. Ironically, the site of demonstration, the Introduction to Perspectives on Law class, is where students learn about the relationship between race, class, gender, sexuality, and the law. Yeah. $20 says they don't learn the real relationship between those things in that class, though. Specifically, the student activists want a stronger voice in hiring, more professors of color, and, critical race theory training. In other words, we should be able to choose which professors we want to tell us the things we've already decided. That'd be great education, wouldn't it? A few weeks after the in-class demonstration, a daily newsstand was defaced with the message, "White lives matter more than anti-racism. Trust no Negro." The Black Law Students Association took to Facebook to note that regardless of whether or not this act of violence was perpetrated by a law student, it is imperative that UW Law investigate the origin of this message and respond publicly to reassure students that this behavior is unacceptable. For some unknown reason, in this age of smartphone-originated instant news and social media postings, there is no photo of this act of violence. Yeah, that was just a coincidence, I'm sure. Black Law Student Association President Mary Ruffin said she didn't think the timing of the newsstand message was coincidental. No doubt, as soon after, Ruffin contacted Dean Mario Barnes. Their subsequent discussion included measures such as hiring a diversity consultant, conducting quarterly meetings with groups like BLSA, to foster more transparency, and implementing another law school climate survey. What a fucking surprise. If I were you guys, I'd run out there and thank those totally real racist vandalizers for their extremely convenient timing. From the story, the 4 students who organized the demonstration also felt like they were being ignored. I feel like what they're trying to do is wait us out, 3L student Carla Davis said. They kind of relied on us not passing down what has happened already in terms of organizing to new students so that they can just pretend it was never an issue. In a typed letter addressing the students who organized the civil protest, the Office of Dean Barnes cited financial challenges as the primary reason why they cannot hire any more tenured faculty, also stating that they cannot make race-based hiring or admissions decisions per state law. Well, that's just racist, Dean Barnes! The Office of Dean Barnes further offered some changes to the perspective course, for example, including a much expanded 3-credit version of the program and having students choose from classes such as critical race theory, feminist jurisprudence, or poverty law. But that isn't sufficient, the quartet said. The fact that students can choose from classes may result in them avoiding crucial topics. You catch that? The mask slipped there for a second. What they're really mad about is that people get to choose which classes they want to take rather than being force-fed their ideological bullshit theory. Careful, ladies. Keep it up and people just might start realizing what you're really asking for. What's next, Bob? Lawyer for college race hoaxer argues her bogus claims are free speech. Well, that depends. I mean, as we've discussed around here before, free speech isn't absolute. The lawyer for one of the black SUNY Albany students who falsely alleged a racist attack in 2016 has argued her social media statements regarding the assault are constitutionally protected speech. According to the Times-Union, Frederick Brewington, the attorney for Asha Burwell, claimed in appellate court last week that it was a slippery slope to punish his client for tweets she made. If indeed we put this standard in place, someone would have to arrest our president immediately, Brewington said. You just couldn't resist, could you? Burwell, along with Azriel Aguido and Alexis Briggs, had claimed they were the target of racial slurs and then attacked by a group of white men while on a bus in January 2016. However, video evidence and witness testimony proved the women made it all up. Agudio actually was giddy on a 911 call, boasting how she thought it was so funny that she beat up a boy, and said she'd make a stink about the incident in the media if someone didn't arrive to take down her account of what had happened. Briggs ended up confessing to the hoax in a plea deal. Burwell and Agudio got 3 years probation in addition to a $1,000 fine and 200 hours of community service. Brewington asserts Burwell's tweets, which said, "I just got jumped on a bus while people hit us and called us the N-word and no one helped us. And I can't believe I just experienced what it's like to be beaten because of the color of my skin," are not criminal. Well, in and of themselves, no, they aren't criminal. But has anyone else noticed it yet? No mention of exactly what they were charged with. I really can't have much of an opinion on your free speech claim yet because I don't know if you were charged for the tweets. I suspect you were not. I suspect you were charged with making false police reports or something along those lines because, as far as I'm aware, you cannot be arrested for simply tweeting lies in this country. Defamation, that is slander or libel, is not a criminal offense. It's a civil one. In other words, you can be sued for such things, but not arrested. If there's a lawyer watching and I'm wrong, do please correct me. But in this case, technically speaking, I don't think this fits either slander or libel because they didn't name anyone or direct their lies toward a specific person. They just kept blaming some random unidentified group of white people. So while they are lying, there's no victim to actually sue them for it. Again, I think. I'm not a lawyer, so if you are and I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. We believe that the application in this situation One is dangerous and places the statute, as it is interpreted in this particular case, on the razor's edge, Brewington told the Appellate Division State Supreme Court's 3rd Department in Albany. On Wednesday, justices asked Assistant District Attorney Vincent Stark, who argued the case for District Attorney David Suarez's office, about Burwell's false report causing a public alarm. Stark told the judges that while opinions are always protected under the First Amendment, Burwell falsified facts. Stark noted that in the days after the incident, Burwell appeared before hundreds of people at a rally where she claimed she and her friends experienced something that no one should have to experience in their life, and we will remain unbroken. In a brief, Stark said there was only one problem. None of it was true. And he told the judges Wednesday that Burwell doubled down on her falsehoods at the rally, without ever getting into the details. He said that displayed a calculated method. Stark added that Burwell wanted to bathe in the glory of victimhood. But Brewington said Burwell isn't guilty because she believed what she told the 911 operator on her own call. That she indeed was the victim of racial slurs and assault. She's in tears. She's very upset, and she believes exactly what she has experienced as being true, Brewington told the court. You're kidding me with this shit right now. The lawyer's contention is in line with the logic the girl's supporters had used throughout the ordeal. For example, a Facebook page titled Indefensible Noted Prosecution of the Students highlights the inherent problems in allowing the benefactors of racism to define and legitimize what constitutes a racially motivated act. In addition, a member of Upstate Capital Area Against Mass Incarceration, a Black Lives Matter affiliated group, had stated the alleged assault happened no matter what. Okay, so you're not kidding. A racist assault happened because she believes it happened, even though it didn't fucking happen. You're actually standing in a court of law right now making that argument. God help us if these people ever gain control of the justice system. Toxic time, Bob. Woman says she accidentally left boyfriend to die in a suitcase. Then video reveals horrific truth. A Florida woman is facing second-degree murder charge after her live-in boyfriend died from being trapped in a suitcase overnight Sunday. Sarah Boone, 42, told police that the death of Jorge Torres, 42, was a tragic accident that resulted from an alcohol-fueled game of hide-and-seek. But a video that investigators found on her smartphone shows her taunting Torres as he cries for help from inside the luggage, police said. Boone was arrested Tuesday in the Orlando suburb of Goldenrod, about 7 miles northeast of the resort city. She was being held without bail after an arraignment Monday and faces life in prison if convicted. The autopsy does not list a cause of death, but it is said Torres had long fingernail scratches on his upper back and neck and bruises on his shoulder, skull, and forehead consistent with blunt force trauma. He also had a cut lip. According to an affidavit from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, Boone called police around 1 p.m. She told detectives she had first called her ex-husband to come over to the apartment, and he had advised her to call the authorities. Firefighters arrived at the apartment to find the dead man on the floor near the front door beside the blue suitcase he died in. You needed advice and a second opinion before you called the police about the dead body by the front door. When initially questioned by detectives, Boone described the previous afternoon and evening with Torres as filled with puzzles, painting, and Chardonnay wine. She said they played hide-and-seek, with her hiding in the upstairs shower. At one point, she said they thought it would be funny for Torres to be zipped into a suitcase in the living room. Torres willingly curled up in the suitcase, and Boone closed it with enough space for 2 of his fingers to protrude through the zipper, she recalled. Okay, hang on. Maybe it's the misogynist coming out of me here, but how many 42-year-old women do you know that play hide-and-seek with their boyfriends? Because I don't know any. At about 12:30 a.m., Boone said she went to bed. Sarah assumed Jorge was going to get out of the suitcase and come to bed as well, a detective wrote in his report. Sarah said neither her nor Jorge were drunk from the wine. Boone said she got up the next morning, awakened by her smartphone ringing. She ignored the calls, she said, believing they were from her ex-husband, and remained upstairs in the bedroom until 11 a.m. She said she figured Torres already had awakened and was looking for a job on his laptop downstairs. However, when she moved downstairs and couldn't find him, she freaked out and found his body, according to police. When questioned, Boone consented to have her phone searched, and police found 2 videos that contradicted the story she had told them. The first video, recorded at 11:12 p.m., allegedly shows Torres struggling to free himself as he shouts Boone's name. "For everything you've done to me, F you, stupid," Boone replies in the video, the affidavit said. When Torres responds that he seriously can't breathe, according to the affidavit, Boone tells him, "Yeah, that's what you do when you choke me." Torres continues to say he cannot breathe, to which Boone responds, "That's on you. Oh, that's what it feels like when you cheat on me." Boone then tells him to shut up, the affidavit said. Police said the suitcase can be seen face down in the video, with Torres pushing up on the floor attempting to escape. A second video also shows Torres calling out Boone's name, according to the affidavit. When confronted with the first video, detectives said Boone told them to stop and acknowledged that it looked bad. She claimed she did not recall recording it, police said. "Yeah, now it looks bad. Because we were totally believing you before the video." Boone could not explain why she went to sleep without releasing Torres from the suitcase and began contradicting her original statement, police said. She then began to blame the consumption of alcohol, they added. "Now we were totally drunk and don't remember. Except playing hide and seek, voluntarily getting into the suitcase, and going to bed at midnight without letting him out." Well, fishy as this whole story sounds, I'm afraid we've got no choice here. Clearly, he killed himself while she was blackout, not drunk, to frame her for murder. Not guilty, case closed, moving on. Professors claim non-voters are incapable of knowing why they don't vote. What? People who didn't do something are completely unaware why they didn't do that thing. Okay, this should be good. Do tell. After a recent study found scant evidence to suggest voter suppression is a cause for low voter turnout, researchers are trying to explain away the findings. The academics who oversaw the study are downplaying the results, which found that non-voters list suppression as one of the least significant reasons for staying home on Election Day. Oh, I should have guessed. So-called researchers ended up with some findings that did not support the point they were so desperate to prove, so now we have to wave the bullshit wand to avoid destroying the point we really wanted to make. The study was released by the Knight Foundation, and according to Politico report on the study, 8% of voters said they don't vote because they don't know how or it's too complicated. Only 3% of those surveyed said they would vote if it was easier to vote. But the political scientists who oversaw the study claim those non-voters don't know why they really aren't voting. In a statement to Politico, Tufts University political science professor Eaton Hirsch said, "To find out the effects of restrictive voting laws, you really don't want to ask voters about it. They really don't have a feel of how institutions' rules affect them." Politico called the sentiment a general consensus among political scientists. Right. You really don't want to ask Bob why he didn't vote in 2018. Because he's going to tell you that he'd rather gnaw off his own arm than stand in line to vote for yet another partisan hack who really isn't going to fix a fucking thing anyway. But the reality is, it was clearly the racist, sexist, xenophobic law that doesn't exist. That's the real reason he didn't waste a whole afternoon standing in line to vote for candidates he really didn't like anyway. Yana Krupnikoff, another advisor to the Knight survey and a political science professor at Stony Brook University, added that non-voters may feel social pressure to offer more philosophical explanations of why they stayed home, rather than admit that the voting system was too complicated. When there are so many social messages that people get to vote, to turn out, about how important that is, it becomes even harder to give a reason for not voting that seems random or spontaneous or not good enough, Krupnikoff said. But Hirsch said that no matter how many other factors actually contribute to non-voters opting to stay home from the polls, the reasons respondents themselves identified shouldn't be lightly dismissed. When asked what could motivate them to vote in more elections, a plurality of non-voters cited a candidate I believe in with 22%. 7% of non-voters said they would vote more often if my vote would affect the outcome. In other words, they just told us they don't vote because there's literally no one running for office that they want to vote for. And you said, oh, well, what the fuck do they know? Great study, guys. Really top-notch research there. That's it for this week. Remember the social justice mantra: women are victims, men are oppressors, and feminism is just about equality. I'll see you all next time.